Okay, who's gonna?
Okay, hi. We're David Suzuki Secondary School in Brampton, Ontario, as you guys probably already remember. And we have a hospitality class here again. And we're going to continue on our debate for GMO versus non-GMO foods. And we're going to go into rebuttals, as that's where we stopped last time. So if you guys would like to start, or...
Go ahead.
Yes, so our...
You go ahead and start first, then we'll go.
So we're just going to do a quick recap of what happened last time, and then we'll go into the rest of the debate.
Okay, go ahead.
So for rebuttal, one of the topics is GMOs increase herbicide use. So most genetically modified crops are engineered to be herbicide tolerant. They defy deadly weed killer. Monsanto, for example, sells Roundup ready crops designed to survive applications of the Roundup herbicide. Between 1996 and 2008, U.S. farmers sprayed an extra 383 million pounds of herbicide in GMOs. Overuse of Roundup results in super weeds resistant to the herbicide. This is causing farmers to use even more toxic herbicides every year. Not only does this create environmental harm, genetically modified foods contain higher residues of toxic herbicides. Roundup, for example, is linked with sterility, hormone disruption, birth defects, and cancer.
Okay, can we counter your accusations then? Or do you want to continue now?
Yeah, you can counter. To counter your claim that GMOs cause superweeds, Andrew Niss, Associate Professor of Weed Biology and Ecology at the University of Wyoming, says that almost any way you look at the data, it appears that GMO crops are no greater contributor to the evolution of superweeds than any other use of herbicides. The critics at crop biology often point out that the growth of superweeds in corn and soybeans over the past 20 years are an illustrative of the ecological problems caused by crops genetically modified to be resistant to herbicides like glyphosate. But superweeds, so named because of their ability to withstand specific herbicides, predate the introduction of GMOs in the 1990s and the glyphosates in the 1970s. So therefore, to say that the GMOs cause the superweeds is confusing correlation with causation, which is a logical fallacy itself.
Next point.
Sorry, but may you restate your point?
I said that superweeds are so named because of their ability to withstand specific herbicides, predate the introduction of GMOs in the 1990s and the glyphosates in the 1970s. So to say that they are in direct cause is a logical fallacy, confusing causation with correlation.
Continue. Read the rest of it.
Anyways.
Fine.
What should I say? Anyone else want to go?
Kurt, summarize what you have.
Yeah.
They want you to summarize what you said.
The professors of weed biology and ecology at the University of Wyoming agree that GMOs are no greater contributor to superweeds than any other use of herbicide. Furthermore, superweeds predate GMO introduction in 1990 and glyphosate introduction in the 1970s. So to say that it is a direct causation is incorrect. Do you have any questions about that?
Okay, but the American Academy of Environmental Medicine urges doctors to prescribe non-GMO diets for all patients. They cite animal studies showing organ damage and immune system disorders, accelerated aging, and infertility. So this actually shows that GMOs is a direct cause of health hazards that are in our environment.
Actually, Harvard did a study on that, and they found that after genetically modified foods were introduced to the United States a few decades ago, people independently reported toxic effects caused by the GMOs. This includes the organ damage that you just cited. But they even cited I believe you cited this earlier, it was a rat study by the Institute of Responsible Technology, that the rats were fed a diet of GMOs and it caused organ damage, or so they said. Scientists across the US and the rest of the world have sought to rigorously test the assertions that IRT and others to recover any possible toxicity caused by GMOs. To this end, many different types of modifications in various crops have been tested, and the studies have found no evidence that GMO has organ toxicity or any adverse health effects.
What's your source?
Can you state your source, please?
Harvard.
Harvard University. You're using Harvard?
Yes.
Okay, so my question to you is, how come when it comes to patents and collecting royalties and claiming the rights to own a seed, GMO companies are first to say, like, it's mine. But when it comes to cross-contamination, cross-pollination, and health problems, their response is, we are not liable.
Well, it would be the same with the patent. Any company would look to do damage control, but it's not also non-GMO.
Can you speak up? Can you speak up for me, please?
Sure. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, so what I said was, when it comes to GMO companies claiming their product and owning the rights for seeds and patents and collecting royalties, the company will be the first to say that it's theirs and claim their product. But when it comes to cross-contamination and cross-pollination and health problems, their response is, we are not liable. Can you explain to me why this is?
Well, the company is a business, and a business purpose is to make money. So if you put that into consideration, then yes, whenever they are collecting royalties, of course they're going to do whatever their business model asks them to do. In regards to the liabilities, well, if they're not responsible, why should they take charge for something that happens all of a sudden? Accidents do happen, but why should the company be held liable over something that's not their fault?
Counselor, what you basically asked is something that can be applied over a broad spectrum, and if we did this for every single business, this would be a dumb thing to argue.
There wouldn't be any business.
There wouldn't be any business. This is like saying, oh, how come a car company would want to patent its car, but when like a seatbelt goes on, they're the first ones to be like, oh,
it's not our fault.
It's not our fault. Do you have anything else to say?
Hold on.
In the beginning of your statement, you said that the reason the business do not claim the health effects, but claim really the benefits, is because of business and it's of money. Therefore, you are saying and literally admitting that businesses will lie about their product so they can have a higher income of profits, which can affect the health and risk of the people that they're giving it to.
That was not your question. In regards to the business model, I did answer that yes, they respond when collecting royalties. In regards to the health product, that's your burden to prove. You must prove that all of those side effects are a direct cause of the actual GMO, which proven with our statistics, we disproved that argument and refuted it by demonstrating that under a study made by the Harvard Institute, there was absolutely no side effects that could be tracked down directly to the GMO itself. Are they on mute? Okay. Can they hear us?
We can hear you.
Hi, okay, so basically what you're saying is it's a business, but the thing is when it comes to businesses, many of them are corrupt. For example, a lot of GMOs need to go to the FDA, but...
So are you
Excuse me?
that the business
I said some of them are, but if you let me finish, I can finish my point and then you can rebuttal, please.
All right.
Okay, I am not saying they are corrupt, but I'm saying there is some bias within the business. For example, within the FDA, one of the person that created a policy within the FDA was Michael Taylor, and Michael Taylor was the attorney for Monsanto. As many of people know, Monsanto is one of the largest companies that creates GMOs. So the problem is that how can you have someone that is working for the other side when they're trying to create laws for everyone when it comes to the entire food industry?
Ask you, how is it possible that you are you're doing hasty generalizations off of one policymaker? There are many businesses out there, and some of them aren't even creating GMOs for a business purpose. In regards to the statistic we provided, yes, it was a business. But did you know that in 2016, the world prize for the food winner was actually a sweet potato that was enhanced to help and be introduced into Africa? So again, you can't just come forth and say that we are all just corrupt businesses trying to make money. Yes, I gave an example using money in regards to royalties because that was one of the questions that was asked towards me. Now, in regards to whether or not businesses can be corrupt, yes, but is that our problem to fix? Can we fix everyone's problem? No. And we also can't make generalizations nor hasty assumptions about every single business out there. If that were the case, then there would be no businesses now, would there? Wait, can you hear us? Okay. Oh. Would you like to proceed by getting some prep time for the rebuttal and have a final round?
Sure. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
10 minutes.
10 minutes is cool.
All right, perfect.
Later.
Are you guys about ready?
Lisa, come on, man. Lisa.
Yeah, we're ready pretty much. Yeah, we're ready.
Would you like to go first?
Do you want to finish yours? You want us to go?
One of your students can start with one of the other points.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So, am I on? So to relate back to your point about herbicides and the fact that farmers using more of them, it's actually been proven that GM herbicide tolerant crops have reduced overall herbicide use by, I have the number here. Okay. But there has been a downward trend in use of herbicides from 1998 to 2017 when it comes to herbicide tolerant crops, due to the fact that herbicide tolerant crops don't require you to add on more herbicides than necessary to actually get rid of whatever weeds or pests that there are plaguing the crop. So you do say that there could be an increase in herbicide use, but as of now that is speculation and you have no actual proof to back that up in forms of studies, and therefore that would be an appeal to future and really an appeal to something that you aren't necessarily aware of yet, and that is not factual enough for this debate.
Can you state your source and tell us where you're getting your information from?
My source is the USDA and the EPA in their paper, The Conservation, Tillage, Herbicide Use, and Genetically Engineered Crops in the United States. Talk about.
Okay, so you were basically saying that herbicides do not have an effect on whatever you were saying, but how do you explain that that genetically modified crops have a huge environmental impact and they affect the beneficial organisms such as bees? Bees are the most important pollinators, and they're needed to reproduce plants. Bees are actually proven to help to pollinate at least 30% of the world's crops and 90% of the crops. And the bee organization group has been proven that herbicides have been killing bees at a large rate. So how do you explain that?
I don't have to explain anything at this present moment in time because you haven't proven me incorrect at all. All you have stated is a small fact that doesn't even tie into my point at large. My point is you don't have to add any more herbicides, and that your example that was given earlier in the session by saying that, oh yes, over time you would have to add more is an unintended consequence that you're thinking of. This has nothing to do with
Hey, what's your original point then? Because I'm confused.
My original point was that the point that you made earlier about herbicide tolerant crops increasing the use of herbicides in herbicide usage is incorrect and misfactual to the point of it only being theoretical and not actually in practice by any studies that you or I have shown in this session.
Okay, my question to you is, how do you explain the use of herbicides killing a large minority of not only bees, but also birds and other animals as well? Butterflies, like, how do you explain that?
And my question back is, if herbicide-resistant crops, you have to use herbicides. That's the whole point of herbicide-resistant crops, because the herbicide is not used because it's part of
You're basically saying that the point of herbicides is to kill insects that are needed in this planet for us to eat. Like without bees, you do realize that we will die off in 5 years.
repels crops. It repels insects. It doesn't kill them. The whole point of resistant crops is to resist, not to kill. You never touch my point on the fact at all. You go off on this tangent. You go off on this tangent.
Okay, but I am saying that bees are needed to pollinate the plants that we eat, and your point of saying that herbicides are needed, I don't know what you're saying, are needed to
Resistant. Yeah.
are needed for resistance or
Herbicide resistant.
Excuse me, but the whole thing I am saying right now is that you have not even touched my point, and you are trying to lead us onto a path that you have never, that wasn't even open in this debate until you decided to unlock it with that key. So for you to go down this slippery slope that wasn't even there before you opened.
Okay, so what's your point? We've been arguing back and forth. So please,
Sorry, but can you make your point a bit more clear to us? Because we don't necessarily understand what you're trying to get at here. So we can't really effectively rebuttal you without you presenting your point clearly.
Can you please wait? Please, can you please have your students actually like participate in this debate because it's supposed to be a student debate?
Teacher?
She's a student.
I'm gonna sit down.
So can you come back, sir, with the glasses? Can you come back? Or okay, thank you.
No.
Damn, we came out with some fire.
No, I'm asking.
Excuse me just a moment. These are students. Both of them are students. And you were criticizing one student for not understanding, so we're sending another student up there to clarify. Now you can't choose again, so you're going to get Marissa up there, and she's going to clarify.
They're joking around. Big Maddie, go present it. It's okay.
We're just confused on whether wait, Miss, are you a student or a teacher?
Hey, I'm a junior.
She's in the
Pardon?
I'm a junior.
Oh, okay.
She's a junior? What'd you say?
Okay, go.
I'm wearing heels. Maybe that's why I look a little taller.
Okay, go.
No, what my co-counsel was trying to explain was there are a lot of ways to genetically modify the plants. They have done so in a way so that it's just repellent towards insects. It's not necessarily killing them. They're just resistant to withstand harsher conditions, whether it be because of weather or really just the amount of pests that are around. And there is no intention to kill pollinators, or there's no really study that has shown that pollinators are greatly affected by the herbicide that is genetically engineered into the actual plant. That was all my co-counsel.
We can understand that there's no intention to kill pollinators, but in reality, that's what's happening. And so we need to address that issue. We can't really ignore that issue or say that it's not happening or it's not intentional. It's happening, and that's what's happening. So
It can be considered a huge issue. However, there's no evidence presented. Or is there any way that you could present a statistic or a study that would show? Because we haven't seen that yet, nor has it been introduced in the round until as of right now. So if you could provide any sort of evidence to back that claim, we would really appreciate it.
awesome. Give us a minute.
So earlier you spoke about how the herbicides aren't really affecting any pollinators, but according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency and another website, it states that pesticides play a major role in colony collapse disorder. This is due to the fact that herbicides, they may not be killing them exactly directly, but they're causing mutations within the genes, which changes the genes, which changes how pollinators breed and live. So this affects not only just the environment, but us ourselves too.
What is the thing called?
Colony collapse disorder.
Colony collapse disorder.
Okay. Well, to answer to your question, well, I'm just a little bit confused since what are weeds flowers? It just so seems that you've confused herbicides with pesticides. And they're two different things, and even if they were applied or engineerily modified to plants, it wouldn't affect pollinators because, again, they're used on weeds. They're used to get rid of weeds, not necessarily the plants that so we're confused as to how you're trying to link two things together when they're two different things. Insecticide and herbicide are two very different compounds that are just, it seems that you've confused them in this round.
Okay, so in your point, I wanted to say that weeds do flower. Also, you can bring up the environment in itself with winds and dust clouds. Even if you don't directly spray it on a flower, it can still move. It's the same as if you take Febreze and you spray it in a room, it will travel around a room. Things can move. It's called diffusion and osmosis, right? So, anyways, even if you're saying you guys are only spraying it on weeds, weeds do flowers, bees do pollinate flowers. So either way, you're still affecting the gene. Also, my colleague here also stated the chain effect. By killing one bee or killing thousands of bees, you can affect birds too. By affecting birds, you affect bigger birds, and affecting the environment in a total.
Ecosystem, and then back to
The
us.
whole ecosystem can collapse.
You enjoy arguing with a lot of weasel wording here. There's a lot of could be's and chain reactions, a lot of slippery slopes here. So to answer to your question, if this is all an appeal to future, what evidence do you have now to prove this appeal to future? You don't know that. You don't know what could happen because it hasn't happened yet. So yes, theoretically, it all sounds pretty bad, but you haven't provided a single evidence.
Wait, what do you mean by it hasn't happened yet? How has it not happened?
I don't see birds dying.
These are
Just because, listen to me for a second. Just because you don't see a direct bird dying in front of your eyes doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Even check, the bee population is being extinct. It's decreasing.
Bees are becoming endangered. So are you telling me that's just happening because they're not breeded to live in this
That's life.
society right now? It's obviously from cause and effect. There's something called cause and effect. So when something happens, and there's an effect of what's happening. So when you spray your herbicides, it affects bees. Just because it's not directly affecting bees doesn't mean that it's not going to affect bees in the end.
Come back, please.
Yeah, other animals.
And when these bees are affected, it causes this chain reaction. So this chain reaction is what we're getting to. Life is a cycle. So life is a cycle, a continuous cycle. So when I'm done talking, you can speak.
Are you done? Can I talk? Can I talk? All right, you listening?
Okay, you can talk now. Yes, go ahead.
So your whole point would be correct and would be a valid point if you just show proof first. You have not shown a single valid, solid point of proof in the form of a study, an article, some source that we can identify and corroborate to make sure that it is credible. No. And even when it comes down to all that,
You said that we didn't bring up any proof earlier, but like I said before, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, herbicides and pesticides are causing a decline in the bee population due to colony collapse disorder.
And also, when you keep bringing...
That's herbicides and pesticides, right?
What? Could you repeat that, please?
was insecticides and herbicides, right?
That was actually a slip of the tongue. It's actually herbicides. That's what it says on the actual website. No, it says herbicides. That was just a slip of the tongue.
Considering that you're going through that, how old is that study? Just asking. What year is it from?
That study was from 2014.
Study take into effect any GMO crops at all? Or are you just reading this as a blanket statement? Because if it doesn't take into account GMO crops and it doesn't focus on GMO crops, then why are you using that study in this case?
Wait, could you repeat that, please? Sorry.
Does the study only focus on herbicides as herbicides, or does it focus on GMOs that employ herbicides? Does it focus only on GMOs, or is it all of it in total? Because if it focuses on
you guys were the ones who brought up the herbicidal issue, and GMOs are part of this whole system of how we try to preserve our plants and keep our plants alive. And you brought up herbicides and how they're used, and also GMO and the relationships they have with GMOs.
Okay, but first off, you're the person who brought up herbicides first because you brought it up earlier in Cardinal time, and I was just making your point known. Second of all,
no, actually, you brought up herbicides much earlier than we did.
Second of all, that whole statement is incorrect, and you are avoiding the point where I am saying that your source does not match this debate because it doesn't take GMOs into account. All it does is talk about herbicides in general, unless you are talking about a GMO that has specifically touched herbicidal use. And that is what this whole study is about. This study is not valid for this debate.
And then it only further proves our point.
Okay, well, even if you keep saying that we're not talking about GMOs, you brought up points about herbicides, and what we were doing was simply countering your statements. And we have relevant studies, we have relevant information, we have factual information. So we were just simply countering your point with information that makes sense to us.
You weren't countering our point. You were countering a point that we did not make.
You're countering your own point.
The point we're saying is that with GMOs that have herbicide resistance within their DNA, you end up using less herbicides. So that means that less insects will die if they're dying from whatever you're trying to say. So you're pretty much agreeing with us that GMOs are better for us because we get to use less herbicides and insecticides.
Excuse me, no one said that, so I'm confused.
You have to say it. It was implied. You said herbicides are bad because they kill insects, correct? That's what your source says, correct?
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
Okay.
Because you stated first.
That means you have to use less herbicides because it's already in their DNA. You do not have to spray anything on the plants. That means nothing else is dying.
Oh, you're agreeing with us. Okay, so you're agreeing with us.
So you're agreeing with us.
Okay, but did you not just say that you have to spray less herbicides? Okay, hold up. In the process of creating GMOs, herbicides are involved. Yes, correct, right? You just stated that if we want to not kill the bees and kill insects, you just have to spray less herbicides. Is that not what you just said?
But is that not what GMO crops
Okay, but
benefit of GMO crops, which
is that not what you said? Yes or no? You can't go back on what you literally just said that.
Michelle.
What? I want a timestamp. I want. No, you can't say that we haven't said. No, you go. I'm tired.
The herbicide is in the DNA. It's in a controlled lab. And then it goes into the DNA and the genetics of the GMO. That means that you're not spraying any herbicide.
Yeah, you said it again. It's going
into their DNA, so you're admitting to mutation.
Yeah, you literally just said that.
Yeah.
So you're agreeing with us.
Manipulated or
And also, the widespread adoption of genetically engineered crops over the past 2 decades has led to an explosion in the use of toxic weed killers, which are these herbicides that we're talking about. So GMOs, you're kind of making it seem like, oh, GMOs and herbicides, they're like not related at all. But here we have so many studies saying they are related, and herbicides are killing bees and their pollinators, and again stating that causes a whole chain reaction that leads to just terrible things for the environment.
Source that proves that it's actually gone up and how much it's gone up?
Okay, can you use facts to back up your proof that you claim? Oh, she's asking us for proof? Wait, what'd you say?
You said that it dramatically increased. I don't know how much dramatically increased this.
Don't you guys have computers?
Where did you get?
That the scientific okay. So Ramiz Nam says that the scientific consensus is that GMOs are safe to eat as other food. They reduce soil damaging tillage, reduce carbon emissions, reduce insecticide use, and reduce the use of most toxic herbicides in favor of milder ones. So it's that last point that we're trying to go on, is that like GMO crops significantly decrease the amount of toxic herbicides that are used whenever non-GMO crops are in place. And moreover, the larger killer of insects that by far will eliminate bees and important insects is wide spectrum pesticides. This is what is used in current chemical farming practices. Insect resistant crops reduce the amount of pesticides utilized in current unsustainable rate of chemical agriculture. According to Bruce Tabashnik at University of Arizona, an insect repellent plants have been a clear win, as BT producing crops kill only key pests and beneficial insects survive because of this. And a study conducted in China about the effects of BT cotton crops proved that even a small reduction in pesticides leads to big increases in beneficial insects like bees. So like this, along with our information that genetically modified crops reduce most toxic herbicides in favor of milder ones, means that like even though herbicides are still going to be used, and they're definitely going to be used if crops aren't GMO crops, like they're going to be way less toxic and kill way less bees. That is what happens because of like the use of GMOs in our crops. And more than that is that pesticide use and wide spectrum pesticide use goes away. Like that is eliminated when we have crops that are already resistant to pests, to key pests.
Okay, once again, you're agreeing with us because you said that your study, can you repeat your study about China again and the lychee?
No, it's about
what just happened.
Did we do that?
Did I do that?
They're hiding.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can you repeat your study about the lychee?
Yeah, so it's not about
so BT is a specific substance that gets rid of key pests. Key pests are like pests that need to be gotten rid of in crops because they're the ones that kill crops. So BT is a substance that is produced by these insect repellent crops. So in this study in China, it was specifically about cotton, and this study, it proved that like the use of insect repellent crops significantly improved the environment, as these important insects that were beneficial to the environment continue to survive and actually thrive because wide spectrum pesticides were not in use.
Yeah, so you just agreed because you said that wide pesticides are not being used, so the use of like bees and stuff aren't. Is that not what you just said?
Can I clarify real quick?
Yeah, go.
Okay.
So broad spectrum pesticides is what is used when like insects become resistant to current pesticides, right? So pesticides, broad spectrum pesticides are used on non-GMO crops. They're used on crops that don't have any kind of insect repellents already on them. Whenever insects become resistant to these kinds of pesticides. So this chemical BT that is produced by these insect repellent crops kills key pests, but it is not broad spectrum, right? And this is specifically in GMO crops. So we're saying that like broad spectrum pesticides are utilized in non-GMO crops, but they are never utilized in GMO crops because GMO crops already have BT produced by the crops in themselves. So no kind of broad spectrum pesticide is necessary for that. Are what is causing the problem, and GMO eliminates the necessity of any kind of broad spectrum pesticide.
So spraying the GMO crops, like that doesn't really matter. But the other crops that you guys are spraying, like the wheat and stuff that you guys are spraying with the herbicides, is also gonna make dust clouds and bring it over to other organisms, pretty much.
Wait, if we're not arguing about
you want to spray regular plants with herbicides and insecticides because y'all are against GMO.
Okay, can one person speak, please? I can't listen to all of you guys.
Can you repeat that real quick?
They want to do one at a time.
Yeah, go.
No, I was asking for one person to speak because I couldn't listen to all of you guys.
Yeah, so we're just saying that like GMO crop, we're specifically debating about GMO crops, so I don't know why you guys are bringing up like other crops, but we're saying like we are eliminating the use of pesticides and the use of toxic herbicides with our like implementation of GMO crops, or like our defense of GMO crops.
Okay, understood. But the reason we're bringing up other crops is because the dust clouds that come off of the herbicides, like the herbicides that you guys use, the dust clouds that it forms, brings it over to other pollinating flowers that destroys bees and destroys our environment.
Well, right. Okay. So what we're saying is like in GMO crops, we don't use toxic herbicides. Like that is something that is significantly reduced because these plants are already herbicide resistant. So we use mild herbicides that are something that is already used on other plants. So it doesn't actually reduce like the nature of these other crops, like non-GMO crops. And more importantly, like
see the problem that we're encountering here is that you guys are focusing directly on direct cause and effect. The effect of what happens from using GMOs directly. But we're talking about the chain reaction. We're talking about the effect of that you may not see, the effect that you may not see from
what's happening though.
The effect that you may not see from that causes a direct connection from GMO to herbicide use. We're talking about how it connects in the long run, how it connects in the long run. That's what we're arguing here.
So we do want to talk about what goes on. I have a whole other point for that, if you would like.
Pardon me?
So if we do want to,
Pardon?
Talk about like the effects of GMOs in the long run, do we want to talk about like how GMOs like?
See, and this is why you guys keep saying that we have no proof supporting these facts, because with all the studies that are happening, there may not be direct causes from GMO cause and effect. But in the long run, that's what we're talking about, because things connect. Like just because it doesn't connect right at the beginning doesn't mean it doesn't connect in a cycle.
We're not going to look at what happens because the effect of insects, because the effect of pesticides is something that is immediate and something that we see now. And I think that's what we recognize.
Okay, so also sorry to cut off your points a little bit there. You can finish what you're saying, but we're trying to wrap up now. We have only a couple of minutes left. Sorry to cut the debate short again, as we did last time, but we've enjoyed this debate, and we hope to have another opportunity to do this with you guys again. And you guys brought up excellent points, and we're very worthy debate partners. So we thank you very much. And if you would like to finish our point, we'd like to wrap up the debate now. So thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. You can finish.
Yeah, you can finish. That's all right.
Can I get a pencil?
No, we guys are J. Cole, Pusha T.
Huh?
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's anything else you guys would like to say, but this class, obviously, as you can see, they're packing up, leaving. Sorry about that. But yeah, so. Yeah, thank you so much. Goodbye. Thank you.